March 14, 2012, my son Thomas lost his battle with the disease of addiction. I now belong to a club that no parent should ever belong to. Do you know the signs? Do you know the trends that children are doing in today's world? Do you know the signs and symptoms? Do you know the signs and symptoms of drug abuse? I want to empower and educate Long Islanders by bringing a force of professionals and how to prevent the disease of addiction. Long Island in Crisis. Good evening and welcome to Long Island in Crisis. This show is about the current heroin and opiate epidemic in the United States. I am located on Long Island, however, hence the name. I lost my son on March 14, 2012. And tonight, my very special guest is Mr. Avi Israel from Buffalo, New York. And he unfortunately lost his beautiful Michael on June 4th, 2011. And on one of our first shows, we shared Michael's last note. And I'm going to let Avi tell the rest of his story, but this man is an unrelenting, unstoppable, unbelievably committed person to getting rid of the stigma, getting rid of the shame of addiction, and holding people, especially doctors, accountable for how they prescribe opiates, and a lot of other legislation that has come to be. So welcome, Avi.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Oh, please, my pleasure. Thank you for the drive down. So you have been, well, first off, you've been a part of the Good Sam 9/11 bill.
Right.
The
I-Stop.
The I-Stop, which is very important legislation, which actually led to the uptick in heroin, but we'll talk about that.
Yeah.
But first, tell us about Michael.
Oh, Michael was every father's dream child. He was a great kid, great sense of humor, and very quick with it.
Like his dad.
Thanks. Just good to have around. Michael was diagnosed at age of 13, around 8th grade, with Crohn's disease. And things have changed since then. He did good for a while until about the age of 18, when he had to switch doctors, when he had to switch GI doctors. When he was transferred to an adult GI, things have changed for Michael. His Crohn's came back. The level of care has dropped dramatically. The caring by the doctor has dropped. And Michael was being prescribed narcotics for pain. At the time, this was in 2009. We really didn't know very much about it. All we knew at the time was, your kid is in pain, Michael was in pain, and we needed something.
And we trust doctors.
We absolutely trust doctors. We trusted his doctors. Michael had 3 of them, and all 3 prescribed a deadly medication at the time, to an 18-year-old. So Michael was given hydrocodone for pain, and when the pain didn't subside, Michael went through surgery. And he had some of his bowel resuctioned, and came home with pain pills. And when he got depressed, because hydrocodone is a depressant.
And you're 18 years old, coming through major surgery, and that's...
Yeah. And so he was given Cymbalta, and when he got anxious, he was given Xanax by another doctor. And at the time was prior to I-Stop, so none of the doctors really talked to each other. No one knew what the other one was prescribing, and no one picked up the phone and coordinated care. There was no coordinated care at all. And none of the pharmacies really knew what the other pharmacy was prescribing. So if you went to, for instance, Rite Aid, they didn't know what CVS was prescribing,
Right.
was filling, so and so forth. In December of 2010, Michael said that he had a problem, and I remember sitting in our bedroom, and Michael said, "Dad, I have a problem." And I said, "What is the problem, Mike?" And he said, "I'm addicted." And I didn't know anything, and I didn't think of it as very serious. And I says, "What are you addicted to, Mike?" And he says, "My pain pill." And my question was, how do you get addicted to your pain pills? I mean,
Right.
we all know that phrase, you know, don't take those, you could get addicted, but you never really seriously think about it. And when
You were taking it according to directions.
Yeah.
Take as prescribed. He wasn't abusing it.
Yeah, no, not in the beginning. He was not abusing it. I think as time went on, he did, obviously, because of, you know, they are very addicting. So, I mean, that's how lax I was when he told me he was addicted. I thought, well, when we go see the doctor, we'll tell him about it. And we were seeing the doctor in the following week. So I did tell the doctor, and what I got was a tap on the shoulder, and the doctor says, "Oh, I know what I'm doing. Don't worry about it." And Michael went into the hospital. He was so depleted of nutrients and so sick that he went into the hospital and stayed in the hospital for 2 months. And he came out with an ileostomy bag. Okay. And this is, at the time, he was 20 years old. And when I saw him in the hospital several times, I mentioned it to the doctor. I says, "You know, I'm looking at Michael, and all he keeps talking about, when is the next pill? When is the next pain pill?" And the doctor told me that before he would leave the hospital, we're going to wean him off. And I believed everything he was saying. And I mean, we all know different now. We know that you can't wean off somebody while they're in the hospital and getting pain pills.
Exactly.
You can't wean them off. And Michael came home with 3 scripts for different strength for hydrocodone, a script for Xanax, and that's how he was discharged. And in April of 2011, Michael was getting really bad, so we tried to get him into a detox facility. We called our family doctor, and he had no clue of where to go.
Really?
Yeah. And that's one of the problems that I find with the medical community. They're really good at prescribing medication, but when it comes to treating addiction, they have no clue what to do, where to go, who to see, and anything and that sort. And he suggested a couple of hospitals, and when we checked with them, one was closed, and the other hospital
he didn't even know that
he didn't even know the hospital was closed, and the other hospital was not doing addiction anymore. So we called our insurance company, Blue Cross and Blue Shield, and I got a guy from Tampa, Florida, who was trying to tell me about a facility in Buffalo, New York. We had no idea. And again, I got the facility of the hospital that was closed, and I told them that that hospital was closed.
And that was the only facility that they had
at the time. That was a facility that was taking
Blue Cross
people for detox.
Okay.
So he suggested a couple of other facilities, and when we called, you get a recording to leave your name and number, and somebody call you back. And you know, we can touch on that later, but couldn't get any help. So the next day, I started making phone calls, and after 2 days of calling, found a place that would take Michael, but they said that they didn't have a bed available. And my daughter, who lives in the city, who is a social worker, made a point to call them and said that Michael is her patient and she wants a bed ready for him right away. So they did make a bed available for Michael. He went in there, and at the time, the level of care at that facility was really bad. It was not anywhere to bring a kid, 20-year-old, that weighed 100 pounds with an ileostomy bag.
Oh, my goodness.
It was a place for hardcore alcoholics that went in there to dry out, and then
And
get a
probably
meal.
much older than him, I'm going
Much
to
older.
assume.
Michael was
Yeah.
the youngest. So on the first night at 4 o'clock in the morning, I got a call from Michael, and he says, "Dad, I'm sitting at the emergency room." And I said, "Why?" And he said, "They brought me in here because I was dehydrated, and they left me here." So I called the facility, and I said, "I'm going to go get my son." And they told, "No, if you get him, we can't take him back." So I had to sit there and wait for them to get Michael, 9 a.m. You know, it was breaking your heart.
Of course.
And then for 3 days he sat there, and because I got a call on the third day from my insurance company saying that they're not paying for this detox.
And the reason why they weren't going to pay for it?
Because there's not a full-time doctor in the facility. There's no facility in this country that has a full-time
doctor, correct.
You know. So Michael came home after 3 days. And
I'm sure still
addicted.
Certainly not detoxed.
No, very quiet. You could see that he was very quiet, disappointed. I could see that there were things going on. And on May 17th, I got a text from Michael that said, "Dad, you don't deserve a son like me. I love you." So I knew what he was going to do, and I called him, and he didn't answer the phone. And I called my wife, and I asked her to see if she can find Michael. And I started heading towards his apartment. And then I got a call from my wife saying, from Julie, that he was in our garage with the car running.
Oh, my God.
So I called 911, and by the time I got home, he was out. And he was taken by ambulance to our county hospital. That's the only CPAP, which is our psychological unit evaluation in our county. And we sat there for 12 hours. And he got seen by an intern who, in the words that I would never forget, told me that your son has a tendency to lie. And I said, he's addicted. Yeah. He's addicted. He'll tell you anything you want to hear. That's
Absolutely.
what people who are addicted do. And I called his counselor and I asked, what should I do? And she said, well, you know, they'll do all kind of things to get your attention, but if I were you, I'd change the locks on your door and stuff like that. And I didn't know at the time what she was talking about, because I think all of us parents who face addiction in the first time are really ignorant. We don't know. I mean, we're expert now in it.
Hindsight is, you know, it's easy to be the Monday morning quarterback,
Yeah.
but when you're in the throes of that and you're trying to work, raise your other family, try to comprehend what's going on with your child that you adore, that is now the lying, manipulative thief with the big problem.
Yeah. So after 12 hours of spending in their ward, which was really horrible, Michael and I came home. And that was the extent of the treatment. Michael, that was an active act of suicide, and really by law you're supposed to hold somebody for 72 hours.
At least.
Yeah, they never did.
I'm going to hold you for the end of the story for 1 second.
Yeah.
We'll be right back after this message.
Hi, I'm Tatiana, and I'm a person in long-term recovery from heroin addiction. It was really, really hard, waking up in the morning, not knowing what to do, needing my next bag. I was so lost, but I'm here today to tell you that there is a solution. When I was in my active addiction, I didn't realize that there was another way of life. I thought that that was the only way, because it felt so good to get high, but it was all an illusion, and I didn't realize that. But today, being 4 years clean and sober, my life is absolutely amazing. I'm able to travel, I don't need a drink, I don't need a drug. I'm just happy being with myself. I couldn't understand for many years why was I doing this? It's because I was an addict, but I didn't know it. Today, many kids are becoming addicted to drugs and alcohol, but they don't know exactly what they're getting into until they're out of it. And it's our job, it's my job, to stand for these kids, stand for their recovery, and fight for their addiction. So I'm the president of Onward Forever, and I provide recovery services and support. And we're here to help. We're here to just listen. Anything that we can do to help. If you need me, this is how you get a hold of me. Please call 347-244-1550. 347-244-1550. I developed this company to help you, our families, and our community to fight this crisis on Long Island and in our nation. Thank you.
Galaxy Luxury Coach is a full-service limousine and party bus company. Family-owned and operated, we are an industry leader with over 25 years of experience in providing best-in-class luxury transportation for your special event. Whether it's your precious wedding day, an all-day wine tour out east, your high school prom, that special birthday, or just an amazing night on the town, our professional chauffeurs stand ready to ensure your special event is truly special. Galaxy Luxury Coach has one of the largest and modern party bus fleets in the New York area. Our party buses are simply nightclubs on wheels. Concert sound systems, light shows, lasers and strobes, multicolor LED lighting brilliantly lights your party bus inside and out. For corporate and more laid-back events, we will cater to your specific needs and requests. What sets Galaxy aside from all others in the luxury transportation industry is our attention to detail in customizing our services to your special event. At Galaxy, it's all about you and your guests. Galaxy customers return time and time again because they know they can trust Galaxy to help deliver those lifetime memorable moments. Step aboard and let your Galaxy experience begin. Galaxy.
Welcome back to Long Island in Crisis and my good friend here, Avi Israel. I'm sorry to cut you off right at that story, but I didn't want, you know.
Yes. So we came home that night.
And certainly, if you lock yourself in a garage with the car running.
That's an active act of suicide.
That's an active act of suicide.
To send somebody home.
Plus a text message to you.
We'll find out, I mean, we found out that really our healthcare system has let so many people down, and you get so many young kids who just fall through the crack. And that's acceptable to the community.
It's cost of doing business.
Yeah. So that was May 17th. And then, you know, a couple weeks later, Michael was trying to take his grandmother's pills. He was really trying to go straight, but I think he had a weak moment, and he tried to steal some of his grandmother's pills, and he got caught. And the advice that I got from his counselor was to take something away from him. So I said, okay, Mike, I'm going to take away your car. And he says, Dad, please don't do that. I said, well, I'm going to take away the car tonight, and I'm going to, take you to your apartment. And I did, and I took him to his apartment, and I had a sense that something was not right with him because he was very quiet. And I said, Mike, don't do anything. Please don't do anything. And he says, I promise you, Dad, I won't. And the next morning, I got a call at about 8 o'clock in the morning, and he says, I want the car back. And I says, Mike, we'll discuss it. And he said, when? And I said, well, not right now.
Okay.
But we'll discuss it. And I went home, and Julie said that Michael was in the backyard. And I said, how did you get here? And he said, I took a bus. I says, well, come on in. And he says, I want the car. And I says, Mike, I want you to call your counselor and ask her to get you into treatment. I says, I called her earlier that day, and she said that you need to call since you are 20 years old. So he did. He called. And he talked to her for a few minutes, and then he handed me the phone, and she said, Mr. Israel, there's no beds available. And I said, so what do we do? I mean, he needs help right now. What do we do? And she says, well, you can go back to the county hospital. I says, we did. That didn't work. They sent us home. What do we do now? She said, well, you can wait till Monday. And I said, okay. And I hung up, and I was looking for Michael. And I thought he went to the bathroom to empty his ileostomy bag. And then I heard my wife knocking on the bedroom door and saying, Mike. And he said, what? And I says, I'm going to go in the back and see if I can see him through the window. And I went to the back window, and I heard a shotgun being cocked. And by the time I got to the side door, I heard the shot go off. And so I pushed Julie out of the way, and I kicked the door open, and Michael was laying there. And I knew he wasn't going to live. And he was trying to breathe, and I grabbed him, and I basically told him that I love him, and he took his last breath. But what was going through my mind was, as I was holding him, was why is this happening? How did he get here? How did we get here?
Right.
How did we get here? What's going on? This kid had Crohn's disease. How did we get to this point where he ended up taking his life? What went wrong here? And I couldn't get that thought out of my mind that whole weekend. And obviously we were not able to be with Michael in the room because it was a crime scene, because a shotgun was used.
Right.
So it took a while for the police to remove Michael's body. And the whole time I'm just thinking that this is not right, that something
Well, it's such a surreal...
Yeah.
It's just absolutely surreal.
It
Sometimes
is.
It's still surreal
It
for
is.
me.
It is.
You know, you can't believe that, is this happening? Is this
Yeah, it's
actually
like
happening?
a dream. It's like a dream.
It's a bad nightmare.
Yeah, it's like a dream, and it's everything like echoes all over, and it's like you're somewhere in deep water, and well, people are talking to you and all that stuff.
And I know for me, the whole movie of his life played.
Yeah.
And just like you said, how did we get to this point?
Yeah.
Because at any one time, I'm quite sure that Michael didn't say, I know Thomas didn't wake up one day and say, I'd really like to be addicted to opiates,
You know, it's funny because I remember when I first gave the story to the Buffalo News, because Michael was buried on Tuesday, and I called the Buffalo News and I wanted to get that story out. And I actually called the doctor that was prescribing him all the hydrocodone, his surgeon. I called him that Saturday, and I said, I want you to know that Michael just took his life. And I want you to keep that in your mind, that I did tell you about the addiction. And you may be talented in surgery, but you're a lousy doctor when it comes to addiction. And he said, I'm sorry. He apologized. And I said, well, it doesn't help right now.
No, it doesn't.
Doesn't help.
No.
I told you that Michael
Doesn't help
was
today
addicted.
either.
Yeah.
Do you feel like I'm sure, you know, I can't imagine that he meant harm for Michael.
Oh, I don't think any of Michael's doctor wanted to harm him. I think that Michael's doctors saw a young man who was in pain, and thought that was the right thing to do, was to help ease his pain. And I think that's what's going on with the whole medical community. They are told, they've been educated to make sure that nobody goes through pain.
They've been educated by pharmaceutical company.
By pharmaceutical company, yes.
That's a big difference.
Yeah, and then to make sure that nobody goes through pain, and to just prescribe. But the thing is about life is, you know, we all have pain in our life.
Absolutely.
And you know, a little bit of pain never hurt. I mean, at my age, I'm 63, and I've been through a lot of moments in my life with pain, and I didn't have to take narcotics. And before narcotics were on the market, we all survived.
We did.
You know, we've been around for, according to, you know, the Jewish Bible, as you know, for 5,000 years, and we did good.
Yeah.
You know, for the last 15, 20 years, we've been told that this is the only way to treat pain, which is, to me, is nothing but greed. It's all nothing but greed.
Well, the gentleman that is behind, right, just made the billionaires list.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I hope he sleeps good at night. So I gave the story to the Buffalo News on Thursday, and it made the front page on Sunday. And to touch on your point of the stigma and what people think, Thomas and Michael didn't get up and say, I want to be an addict, that's my goal.
I want to destroy my family.
Yeah. But our society thinks that of anybody who gets addicted, that it's a weakness.
It's a moral failing. It's a choice.
Yeah, you did that to yourself. It's your problem. I really don't give a damn what happens to you. And my money should not go towards treating you. But I would ask the same question of those people is, if you could find one person, one kid that says, when I grow up, I want to be a professional addict, I'll give you anything you want in the world. Because you'll not find that. If you look for any college that teaches a course in addiction, I'll give you anything you want. Any professional school that has a course on how to be a professional addict, you'll not find it. Things happen. Things happen, whether by accident or by what happened to Michael. You are prescribed, you know, where you were prescribed into addiction.
Yes.
You know, it is not a moral failure. It is not a weakness. It's a disease. If you look in the dictionary, addiction is a disease. It's defined by, you know, it's defined right there in the dictionary. It's a disease that needs satisfaction. You know, we can look at somebody who smoked for 40 years.
Yes.
And to me, that's an addiction that's a slow moving, and it takes a while to get a hold of you.
Yes.
Okay, but yet that person gets treated better than a kid that made one mistake.
Absolutely.
Why is that? And if that person that smokes get cancer, he'll get all the treatment and all the help they want. But the kid that made a mistake or got prescribed into addiction, or for that matter, any of those, a kid or a full-grown person, whoever it is, they look at them as moral failure.
Well, you know, I don't believe that we always talk about the young generation because we are losing we're losing a whole generation.
Yes.
But the 45 to 55 year age bracket
is the highest.
That is the highest percentage that die every year due to opiates.
Yeah.
So let's take a look at that. But the spouses aren't reporting it. The doctor is not reporting it as an overdose. No. They're not reporting it as such. So we don't even have a clear figure as to what the death rate among that age group really is.
Well, they're telling us that there's somewhere around 17,000 people who die every year from opiate. But if you take in Michael's case, that's not reported as opiate death, even though that contributed to the death. Michael's was suicide. Yep. You know, but if you throw in all the drugged driving, all the construction people who've fallen off ladders, get electrocuted, and whatever else accident that happened on the job site, that's another place where the death rate is really high.
Absolutely. And we'll be right back after this message, and we're going to talk about that because the constructions unions is a big problem. We'll be right back.
Stretching under sedation or manipulation under anesthesia is a very gentle, very precise procedure to very slowly release any scar tissue that is formed as a result of a traumatic injury. Many people ask, how does this work? Will I get hurt? Will you stretch me too far? We only stretch the body part to its normal range of motion. After completing the post-MUA rehabilitation program, it's very common that our patients say to us, hey, I can play ball with my kid again. Hey, I can bowl again. Hey, I can enjoy hiking again. This is what makes it rewarding to us as practitioners.
What are you looking for? You don't even know that. Are you on the ball list? So you can't even answer. I'm asking you about it. You gotta be highly skilled. You gotta be highly skilled. You understand that?
Are you sick?
Are you well versed there? Are you very smart man? Hit me with some funny shit.
My shit's twisted.
Tell me something.
What do you have right there?
That's awesome.
Well,
that's a big.
That's nice.
You know damn well.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
Sir. Hey, are you interested in twisted
talent?
Yes, I am.
Sure. See, you got twisted.
That's twisted. That's talent. You see what I'm saying? You understand me? And if you can't whip out answers like that, that man is liable to door a commercial break, punch your fucking mouth loose. You understand me? Time is up, sir. You understand me? You're on. You're the man. All right, give me your name now. I'm sorry.
My name is Willie.
Willie, where you working at?
We are twisted. We are awesome. Love it.
Can you repeat that question again?
Hi, I'm Tom Neely from Madhousetv, and when I'm not at the studio, I'm here at the Harrison Law Group. This is my real job. And this January 2015, Brett and I are putting together a show called Legal Straight Talk. It'll be aired on Cablevision as well as here at Madhousetv. You need to tune in. This information that we're going to be giving the public is the real deal. It's all about what you should do, what you shouldn't do. So tune in this January 2015 for a new episode of Legal Straight Talk.
Welcome back to Long Island in Crisis. So, Avi, we were just discussing in July of 2014, I spoke at the Laborers Assistance, their convention out in Las Vegas, 1,500 of, each union has a person who is trained in addiction medicine that helps their people and their loved ones get help.
Yes.
Yeah. And they need to be educated prior to starting their job that if you get hurt, or what can you do to let's prevent you from getting hurt. let's, do preventative things to make your body healthier, to keep you in a better, so that you can react better if you do happen to get injured on the job. Well, because these are working men. My father was a working man too. You need to get back to work to take care of your family. So you're going to suck up and you're going to take pain medication if that's what makes you get back to work, because you don't have sick time.
Exactly. But, we have a law in New York State. It's a workman's comp law. It's on the books, and it says that no doctor shall dispense opiates for more than 7 days for anybody on workman's comp, and should only dispense for 3 days after surgery, a maximum of 7. And anything after that, they have to get a permission. Do you know of any doctor that keeps that up?
I didn't even know that that was a law. And, you and I have spoken about my younger son just had a very serious back injury. And he was in the hospital for 6 days. I told them in the emergency room that I lost a son to the disease of addiction, so that we know that there can be a family relationship there. No one wrote that down. No one asked questions. No one followed any protocol to further delve into that with Andrew. That's first. Thank God I was there. On Saturday, the doctor came in and said, we're going to, we'll make plans to, we're going to treat this conservatively, and we don't even have to go into that. We're going to send you home with pain meds. I go through the same thing. He goes, well, if he takes them as prescribed, he won't have a problem. And so you know me, I was very quiet and shy in answering him back.
I can just see that.
Yes. But that, if I had given him 4 a day for 15 days, where would I be sitting here today?
Exactly. Exactly.
He took 2 Percocets from Sunday through Tuesday. Wednesday morning he woke up. Blood pressure, you could see, was elevated. He was sweating. He had headaches. His skin was crawling and his body was twitching. What was he in, Avi?
He was
in withdrawal.
Yeah. But that's the problem with the doctors, and you and I have been fighting this for the last couple of years, trying to get education. And the thing that really annoys me to no end is the fact that everything in this country is a knee-jerk reaction.
Yes.
Everything is a knee-jerk reaction. Let's wait until some people die and then we do something about it. And it's the same thing. I mean, if I had to blame anybody for the death of my son, I would definitely go after the system. The system really in this country favors not individual attention, but attention to the masses. So, in other words, you get a company that would tell you, okay, we got this pain pill and it's doing good. So what if a couple of thousand people die? Everybody else gets it. And there's a statistic that I use all the time. There's over 100 million people that take pain pills in this country. Over 100 million people. So that's 1/3 of the population of this country. And you mean to tell me that many people in this country have pain? I mean, are we that bad? We have over 25 million people who are addicted, and who knows how many more. This is a conservative figure.
That's
25
very,
people,
very conservative.
25 million people who are addicted. So you got 1/4 of those 100 million people who are addicted. They got addicted because somebody wrote a prescription. And that's the point that I'm trying to make. There's a lot of headlines right now about heroin. There's a lot of talk about heroin. But nobody wants to talk of how the heroin got started again. Heroin has been around for years, for 100 years or more.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And it
never went away.
The epidemic, really, or if you want to call it that, was the 70s.
The 70s. And it never went away. It's always been there. But it's been for a different group of people. If you take a look at the people who are using heroin today, or people who are dressed with a business suit on, with a tie, who go down to Wall Street and put in their 8 hours a day and make sure to get a fix before they go to work, and sometimes doing lunch, and another time on the way home from from on the way home from work. So, and then you look at the kids who live right here on Long Island, or in the suburbs of Buffalo, or in the suburbs of Albany. Those are the kids who are buying heroin. And you go into Chicago, it's not the inner city that's using the heroin. It's the kids who come from the suburbs.
So you know why? Because in the suburbs, all the parents, you know, you get, the unfortunate part is that whoever can write that prescription, so I get a root canal, do I need 90 Percocet?
No. So that's the point. Nobody wants to talk about how did we start on this bus trip. You know, this magical bus trip that all of a sudden everybody decides to use heroin. They didn't just get there. You know, and people will tell you, well, you know, we stopped the prescription pain pills, and now everybody moving to heroin. Okay, well, there's I-Stop, which uses real time in only 3 states in this country. What about the other 47 states?
If you're in New York, you can drive to Pennsylvania.
Yeah, you know, so there's 47 other states that have the same problem that we do.
Absolutely.
Okay, if you go down to West Virginia and Kentucky and Georgia, the problem is a lot worse than what we have here in New York State. You know, everything started because somewhere a prescriber wrote a prescription. When Grandma had that knee surgery, she got 90 pills.
Yes.
Grandma didn't want to take 90 pills. She only took 2 or 3. But we all do that. She decided, and I did the same thing, I'm going to save this for a day where I might need them.
Right. You never know. Never
thinking that my son was going to go into that medicine cabinet and get those pills. That's how this whole epidemic started. It was by a doctor, a prescriber that wrote, that has no clue what addiction. And everybody's framing this around pain. This is not about pain. Because you know what? We all know how to treat pain.
Yes.
You know? And doctors who are pain specialists don't even know how to, don't know how to treat pain, because to them, today, to treat pain, the easiest thing is write a prescription. That's the best way. That's how doctors treat pain. I know how to do the same thing too.
Absolutely.
I can give you a prescription. You know, nobody wants to get into the nuts and bolts and figure out what causes the pain and how to treat it. It's give you a prescription.
Exactly, but if you don't know the cause, you need to fix the cause and not put a Band-Aid on a bullet hole.
That's exactly it. So they're giving you a prescription. They send you home, and once you get addicted, you get the same answer that I got when Michael got addicted. Oh, no, I don't know where to go. Go try this hospital, go try it. I don't know how to treat addiction. I don't know what to do with addiction. By the way, I'm not supposed to treat your son anymore because he's addicted. Well, guess what, idiot? You got him addicted.
Exactly.
And the whole thing was subsidized by my insurance company,
Absolutely.
which did not want to treat Michael after they subsidized the pills for all those years. So to me, this whole system is failing us. Our medical system is failing us. What it's doing, it's making some people rich, and those rich people are making sure that there's medical professionals who are supposed to take care of our health just keep dispensing the poison because there's nothing else. And those rich people are passing out money to politicians. In 2014, and the medical society, in 2014, pharmaceutical industry has spent $160 million in the first 6 months of the year lobbying Congress. $160 million. You and I cannot fight that. We can go tell the stories of Michael and Thomas every single day. But you know what? That politician is going to look at us, and he's going to cry with us, and he's going to put his hand out there and say, put the check there.
Yep.
And he's going to take that check. And he's not going to bite the hand that feeds him. And that's the problem in this country. That's the problem. We got capitalism with no regulation, and that's greed. And greed is killing us. And it's killing our kids. And this is going to keep on happening. And the reaction that we get from our government is really nothing but BS. Okay? Now, Oasis has just come up with, what, $10 million that
Yes.
they're going to spend on what? You know what? The problem is to try to avoid to spend that $10 million for treatment. Why don't you try spending money on preventing addiction?
Absolutely.
You know, and I've told you,
Education of our young, of everyone. Everybody needs to be educated.
How about if we educate the doctors and the prescribers in how to treat addiction? How about we don't wait until 8, 10, 12, you know, a year later, you know, and then try to treat that? How about if the person comes back to the doctor or calls the doctor and says, hey, doc, you know those pain pills you gave me? They work good for 2 days, but now I need something a little stronger because they're not working. Okay, no problem. Here, I'll give it to you. How about when you get that phone call and you say, you know what? Come on into the office and let's start talking and finding out what it is that's causing that pain.
Absolutely.
Okay? If the doctors knew how to treat addiction as an office visit, we were not going to be short of beds. We're not going to have to use naloxone. Okay? And we're not going to have people dying. And we're not going to have kids shooting themselves in the head, you know, and having families left
devastated
with a big hole.
Wait, you know, we know how many people.
But it's amazing to me, and that happened to us just this past June.
Yep.
You know, we get one idiot like Deborah Glick. Oh, maybe
there were a few idiots.
There was a few of them. There were a few idiots. You know, there's no shortage of them in Albany.
The thing that's infuriating the most is that they don't even want to give you the time of day to listen to your side of the story, because they're being fueled and funded by, you know, the assemblywoman in Great Neck. What's her constituency in Great Neck? All doctors.
Yeah.
So there's money. There's money, and every 2 years she wants to get reelected. And you and I have spoken of this. As passionate as we are about this, I'll make it my life's work not to get them reelected.
Well,
because the problem is so much more deep-seated than that. And they work for us. Yeah. They don't work for the pharmaceutical company.
No, but our system allows it. Our system allows it. And unfortunately...
But I want to explain what we were asking for. Doctors get 50 hours of continuing education, correct?
Yeah. That's mandatory.
The 50 hours is mandatory. We were requiring, or we were asking that, and the way the legislation was written, that 3 hours every 2 years would be on opiates.
As part of the 50.
As part of the 50. Yeah. Not in addition to the 50.
As part of it.
3 hours every 2 years, that would be a mandatory course that you would have to take as part of your 50.
Yeah. To know how to prescribe and to recognize addiction.
And palliative care.
Yeah.
And they said, absolutely not. We will not be told what we will be educated on. So there's arrogance, and there's, you know, thinking you're...
Well, I really think that there should be a lot more of an outrage in the streets.
There should be an outrage.
I mean, we should be outraged over there in the street. And the reason is, to me, I spent 40 years as an electrician. If I caused a fire, I would get the pantsuit off of me. You know. But
Did you have continuing ed?
Absolutely. Every 3 years, 10 hours.
Did you get a choice of courses?
No. I had to take the new code book. I had to sit after work 5 hours, two nights, every other, 2 nights. It was a 2 week, over a 2 week period. I had to make sure I filled in 5 hours each night, and took it every 3 years.
I'm a financial advisor. I also have to do continuing ed. I don't get a choice.
No.
I either do my continuing ed as is dictated to me, or I'm not allowed to.
You lose your license.
Correct.
You lose your license. But we supposedly hold doctors and lawyers and those kind of people to a little higher standard. and I mean, we don't even want to get into lawyers, but
No.
we hold doctors into a little higher standard, and I think they should hold themselves into a higher standard because you are dealing with human life, with health.
Absolutely.
You know, and the fact that you have no idea how to treat addiction, but at the same time you are prescribing the pills that cause addiction. To me, it's mind-boggling that you don't do anything. You don't do anything. What it's mind-boggling to me is that people are not there suing the crap out of doctors for getting their kids addicted.
Absolutely.
Because I think that every doctor that prescribes should be responsible for that patient. Whatever you prescribe to that patient, okay, it's your responsibility to know about these medications. But we find doctors who know very little about diseases, okay, and know much less about pills that they prescribe, about medicine.
I mean, perfect case, and I always take it from my own point of view. If I had allowed my son to take 4 Percocets a day for 15 days, he would no doubt be addicted to that medication. Yeah. Whether he's hardwired for addiction or not, that also comes off the table then. Because once you take those, it changes the plasticity of your brain.
It does.
And then it's not, do I want to take one? I have to take one.
Yes.
Because your body makes...
Well, that's what addiction is. That's why it's a disease. That's why it's a disease. It's not a choice. And I keep saying that. Addiction is not a choice.
No.
Nobody makes that choice. You know, it just happens. There's times that it happens because a kid made a bad choice at a party or whatever,
absolutely.
or peer pressure.
Some people are hardwired.
Yeah.
You know, if it runs in the family, there are so many different variables.
Whatever it is, it happens. We cannot take those people and throw them into the garbage.
No.
You can't do that. You can't do that. I mean, we are supposed to be the great society. You know,
death is not a treatment option that I paid my premiums for.
You know, the other thing that really annoys me is our insurance company, like I said, subsidizes addiction. Mm-hmm. And it's at the point now where they pick and choose whether or not you're going to get treatment. We got our great president who said that everybody should have health care, which is fine.
We're going to, we need to close this hour, but I need you to tune in next week because Avi is staying and we are going to have more of Avi Israel. He is everyone's guy that shows up in Albany when no one else is outraged. Avi is outraged, and he does consistent, constant work in Albany. He has a foundation called Save the Michaels of the World that we'll get into also. And you can't find people that are as outraged as you and I. Let's put it that way, you know. And if we're this outraged, people should be outraged for their own families. And that's the point I think we want to make.
Yes.
People need to be
in the street.
Yeah.
People need to be taking over the FDA.
Yes. You know. So we'll be back next week with more with Avi. Have a great week. Good night.
Hotel room, musty, peeling pale. Time to pull back those shades. Dark hotel
March 14, 2012, my son Thomas lost his battle with the disease of addiction. I now belong to a club that no parent should ever belong to. Do you know the signs? Do you know the trends that children are doing in today's world? Do you know the signs and symptoms? Do you know the signs and symptoms of drug abuse? I want to empower and educate Long Islanders by bringing a force of professionals and how to prevent the disease of addiction. Long Island in Crisis. Good evening and welcome to Long Island in Crisis. As promised from last week, Avi Israel is back this week. And in the beginning clip, you know, it says a force of individuals. This is an individual force that I'm always happy to ride shotgun.
Wow.
But because it's necessary. You know, and I know that we are friends with, you know, there's time for relationships with politicians.
Yeah.
And there's time to take your stance. And when you're there in May and June, no one is certainly my friend. We need to get down to business. We're in the business of trying to save a family. A lot of pain.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think this year, really, we need to start holding some of the people in Albany accountable. And as a matter of fact, we need to hold this guy that sits in the White House accountable, because I find it very amusing that we had one person that died from Ebola in this country.
Oh my
he
gosh.
was not even a citizen. He came here. He traveled here. But yet, our president went and got $6 billion to build 11 hospitals in West Africa that 38 people used.
Yes.
38 people used 11 hospitals. Can you imagine what 11 hospitals would do for kids on Long Island?
Oh, in New York State, in the United States, 11 hospitals would do a lot of good.
Absolutely. I mean, we have the worst epidemic in the history of this country.
It's not solved in 7 days.
It's not solved in 7 days, and it's not. And you can't. First of all, you cannot arrest everybody. You cannot. You know, you can't give treatment to everybody. All that stuff. But this is killing more. There's more accidental death than car accidents, and people don't even realize that. I mean, at the time that you and I sit and talk, you know, for the last hour, there were at least 4 people that
died of addiction,
you know,
of overdose.
in the time that you and I talked. And we're going to sit here. So for the time we're doing this interview, there's going to be about 8 people who died in this country.
You know, people in their own neighborhoods, and I'll talk from my perspective here on Long Island, we have had a rash. Crime is up dramatically. Robberies are up. All of a sudden, every day you hear of a car crashing into a house, into a building, that's not normal behavior. Those are 1 in a million. You're gonna, you know, something's gonna happen. Why? You know, I know why.
We all know why.
They're driving high.
Yeah.
Could be nodding out. Could be, you know, a host of things.
It just happened in Buffalo. A young man fell asleep at the wheel. And drove over a baby, a 2-year-old baby, and his sister. The boy passed, and the sister is injured for life. And he fell asleep at the wheel.
Is he alive, the driver?
The driver's alive, never been charged. He had a prescription. I'm assuming that they said that he was taking a prescription medication. I don't know what it is, and I don't really, I shouldn't really be commenting on that. But what I want to talk about is the lack of treatment what I really want to get into is the lack of concern, number one, by our politicians. This is a major epidemic that is killing people across this country. This is not
any one state.
This is not just one state or one region or anything like that. This is across the country.
Yes.
If you go to places like West Virginia, there's more orphans in the state of West Virginia than any other place in the country. And the reason is the parents are all dying of overdoses of opiates. These are legal drugs. These are legal drugs that they went to the doctor gave them a prescription, they went to the pharmacies filled it, and they've been taking it for years because they'd have to go work in that coal mine to make sure that we have electricity in this studio.
Exactly right.
You know, all that stuff.
Shoes, clothes, take care of their family, priorities.
Whatever it is.
Whatever it takes, they're going to do.
But instead of the folks in Albany and the folks in Washington waking up and saying, hey, wait a minute, you know, we're losing people over here. Nobody wants to talk about it. Because somewhere in the back door, there's a guy from Purdue Pharma with a nice check that's saying don't pass any legislation. You know, make sure the doctors stay stupid.
Well, they want legislation passed. They want Zohydro, and they want Oxycontin to be given to 11-year-olds. Those are the two big things that are...
Isn't that amazing? Isn't that amazing?
Now, you know, I'm not a doctor. First off, if we're talking about end stage of anyone's life, I have no issue with anything.
Right.
None. But if my 11-year-old has surgery, or my 11-year-old has an accident on their bike, or, you know, tears their ACL, the last thing that I want them to get is
something that would add on a disease for life.
Correct.
Right?
It's something that would be way too dangerous to deal with.
But I don't think you would find that many of the people who are prescribing that stuff really think about the future. All they care about is right now. Because, like I said before, our system is so screwed up. Hospitals and the medical community get reimbursed by lack of complaints. So if you go to a hospital and you complain that, oh, I left that hospital with pain, that hospital is not going to get the reimbursement. So why not medicate the hell out of you? So when you get out of there, you have that smile on your face, and you're so high you don't even know that you got discharged. You know, and that's what it is. But what really annoys me is, why is it that we're allowing this to happen? What do you think the generation that are going to come after us will say about us? I mean, we talk about World War II, or we talk about what the Nazis did, you know,
right,
killed all those millions of people. You know, what do you think that our own people will say about us, you know, maybe in 30, 40, 50 years from now? How did those people who lived let that happen? Why did they allow that to
Why were
happen?
they sheep and following the shepherd?
Yeah.
Why didn't anyone stand up and question and say, we're going down the wrong path here? You know, we need to turn this bus around.
We get these things like these round tables that the states hold and all that stuff, and that's fine and dandy because I think every politician should have all sides of the issues.
Without a doubt.
You know, no problem with that. But if you find out that there's a certain type of medication that leads to illicit drugs, won't you want to control that medication to the point where it is being controlled, being prescribed cautiously, being dispensed very cautiously, and the person that takes it being checked on regular basis to make sure they're not, you know, going that road towards the illicit drug? That's not happening. Our system is not happening. What happens is our commissioner at Oasis is saying, well, we're going to add $10 million to build this, to build that, to do this, to do that. You know what? You cannot treat your way out of this. This is not happening. You cannot arrest every Tom, Dick, and Harry and Louise because they did what...
They have to all work together.
And it's
But
not.
if we don't start doing prevention, we're going to be in the same place, or worse, 5 years from now.
We're going to be in the same place from 10 years from now. You know, I said a few weeks ago, Governor Cuomo comes up to Buffalo and he tells all the people, "Oh, I'm giving you $1 billion, billion for Buffalo." That's funny. Thank you, Governor. We'll take that $1 billion. But how about the future generation? Who's going to keep on continuing that work for that $1 billion? Because half the kids are high right now.
Exactly.
You know,
the sad part of it is, too, is what parents and everyone needs to realize. When you abuse that drug, and by the grace of God, if you get clean from that drug, you are not the same person that you were prior to that drug. No. Nor are you going to really achieve.
You're not safe for the rest of your life.
And you're not going to achieve the level that you would have if you had bypassed the disease of addiction. Those drugs affect every cell in your body. So other organs, your brain, all of those things are affected long term.
You heard me say it before. There's a cliff and people are falling off the cliff, and at the bottom of the cliff, everybody's screaming that we need a hospital. We need a hospital at the bottom of the cliff. But if they build a guardrail up there, nobody will fall off. And that guardrail is education. And that's really what we need. The only way to fight this, in my opinion, this is my opinion, is to really educate. Get into the schools. Our curriculum for education in the school has not changed in over 10 years here in New York State. Nothing has changed in over 10 years. We used to have drug education, sex education, all that stuff. There's
no time. There's no time
now. There's no time. Okay, there's no time. So every week you're going to see, another person missing from that school, or every week you're going to see a person failing because we didn't spend the time.
45 minutes of, 500 kids in an auditorium listening to one person speak is not going to educate anyone.
No, and not doing it 1 week a year.
One week, one day. Well, red ribbon week. Right.
That's not going to work. Kids today should understand that what addiction is. And kids today do not understand what addiction is, because kids have been grown up, just like you and I. Nobody's afraid of taking a pill.
No.
We all grew up taking a pill. Mom gave it to you. Oh, you got a headache? Okay, honey, take a pill. So nobody's afraid of taking a pill. They're afraid of the needle the first time. The second time, they do it themselves. But the thing is that we don't explain to kids or adults.
And let's, the reason for that, heroin used to be only injected. Now you can snort it.
Snort it.
You can smoke it.
Yeah.
So there are a lot of ways to get high prior to ever injecting it. And once you're addicted, you're not so afraid to injecting it.
But so that's the thing that I think we should get across to kids, adults, and everybody else. What is addiction? And how serious can addiction be? We don't talk about that at all because there's a stigma with addiction. So if you do it, if we put it out in the open and talked about addiction the same way we talk about breast cancer or prostate cancer or diabetes or any other disease, it would be out there as a disease. Then there would be the second thought about, what? I may not want to take that pill because I don't know, I could get that disease and I really don't want to do it. And that's what I think is very important. It's getting that education out there and letting people understand that addiction is a disease. Once you get addicted, it's a chronic disease for a lifetime. Let's take a great example of the actor Seymour Hoffman.
Yes.
Clean for 20 years.
22 years.
22 years.
Academy Award winner.
Yeah.
Young children.
Very productive person.
Money for treatment.
Yeah.
But what won? He
got his back pain came back, and he went right back into it. And that's what we need people to understand.
He didn't choose to do that.
No, you know what? And that's the whole thing. And here's a person who was grown up, very educated.
Absolutely.
A smart person, very talented. his demons took over. That's what I think we need to get across to a lot of people, and especially to kids.
The other side of that, Avi, is when we look at it, you know, and John Venza, who runs the adolescent program here on Long Island, and a social worker, psychologist, why are 12-year-olds wanting to escape life so badly that they are willing to start smoking pot, drinking beer, and shooting heroin at 12, 13, 14 years old? That says something about our society as is. What is paining them so much that they need an escape from reality?
I mean, that's a whole other subject. I mean, that
right,
we,
but
that
that goes hand in hand.
That we can get into. I mean, you and I grew up and we had both parents in the house. We had everything. Mom stayed home.
It was a slower world. We also didn't have instant gratification to a lot of things.
We also didn't go to 7-Eleven to buy synthetic marijuana.
Right. We didn't go to 7-Eleven, period.
We went to the corner store and we got candy or whatever it was. Now, there's so much available for kids. I just think, the world has changed, and I think the younger generation today has so much more challenges in front of them. And the really, the good examples, the heroes, the people that you idolize, that all has changed.
Yes.
I mean, music has changed today.
Yes.
From what it was back in the 60s and 70s. TV shows have changed from what it was in the 60s and 70s. We got kids today who are playing with video games. We got music that they listen to that glorifies doing drugs. And we could go on and on and on.
We could, and we have kids that sit here and just do this and don't know how to interact.
Our schools do not promote, exercise. I think because we don't have time for that. Our budgets are getting cut. So what are we going to cut? We're going to cut stuff that enrich your mind and enrich your body, and we just let you go from class to class. We used to have 10, 15 minutes to get from class to class. We don't have that anymore. We have 2 minutes to get from one class to the next class.
But you also had gym, physical education every day.
Exactly. My grandson, my daughter told me that my grandson, the teachers decided that my grandson, Jordan, had ADHD. I says, how did she figure that out? Well, because he won't sit still. Well, for crying out loud, it's 6 hours in a classroom. At 8 years old, nobody sits still.
No. No, and that's been another. It's a quick fix because get him medicated.
Get him medicated.
And then I won't have to deal with him not being able to sit still.
Exactly. So instead of really finding out what works for him, and I'll give you a great example. When my son Michael was in school in kindergarten, his teacher was Mrs. Schmidt. And Mrs. Schmidt told us one day that Michael could not sit still, and he always was falling off the chair. So what she decided was, and she told Michael, she goes, Mike, are you more comfortable on the floor? And he said, yes. She goes, well, from now on, you're going to sit and do your work on the floor. But I want you to listen to me. That way you don't fall off. We don't have that anymore.
No.
Because if you fall off the chair, you got ADHD and you need to get medication.
Right.
Okay? So we're not finding out what it is with the kids that bothers the kids. We're just basically just give them something so I don't have to deal with it. And that goes the same thing, and we can blame parents for the same thing also. Because us as parents, we don't really find out what it is that the kids, who they hang out with, who they play with, what kind of music they're listening to. We're not involved in their life the way we should be.
It's a crazy world.
It's a crazy world.
Most parents are working 2 jobs.
Absolutely.
But, in the last 3 years when you can sit and be reflective. I'm a single mom.
Yeah.
I have no choice but to work.
Absolutely.
A lot of hours. I can't, I understand the disease of addiction. That's for me. However, Now I forgot what I was going to say, Avi.
Yeah,
but it's how much do you, here it is, how much do you need and how much do you want? So your kids don't have to have everything and anything that their hearts desire. It's it's the necessities of life.
Yeah.
And if you can come together as a family then and say, we're not going to do ABC because we're going to save that money and go on a family vacation. Yeah. Involve them in your decision making and not give them a voice also.
Yeah.
You could have 3 days of dance, or we could save that money and go to Disney this year.
And have the conversation with them. Have open conversation with your kids. Find out what exactly makes them tick. And what is it that annoys them, or what is it that bothers them? And I really think that, we all think that we are progressive parents and we know, we take care of our kids and all that stuff. And and when things happen, you go,
did I miss something?
What did I do wrong?
Right.
And
addiction has nothing to do with good parenting.
No. But I mean, you and I stay up at night and say, what could I have done wrong? What could I have done differently?
Yes.
One of the things that you can do differently today as a parent, and that goes to everybody out there. That goes to everybody. Learn about addiction.
Yes.
Learn about it. Know what it is. Look for signs. Look for signs. Look for any little thing. And I always say, even if you're wrong, you'll be right.
Absolutely.
Because if you're not watching out for the little things,
you'll miss the big picture.
You're gonna wake up one day and you're gonna say, "What the hell happened to me? And you're
We're going to talk about signs and symptoms right after this message. We'll be right back.
My name is Dr. Robert Brevard. I'm here for Multi-Medicine in Westbury, New York. We're located at 1065 Old Country Road, Suite 214. Been here for about 15 years. The practice has medical doctors, physical therapists, chiropractors, acupuncturists. We also do pain management, and we have orthopedists on staff. Here at Advanced Multi-Medicine Rehabilitation, we've got physical therapists on staff who treat an array of conditions, from neck pain to back pain, shoulder pain. We treat carpal tunnel. We treat a lot of car accident patients, slip and falls. We treat patients with knee injuries, with ankle injuries. We have state-of-the-art equipment. We've been here for over 15 years. Vast array of diagnostic testing, from x-rays to EMGs. What is an EMG? It's a diagnostic test that allows a doctor to determine where the pinched nerve is. Cora is a physical therapist at Advanced Multi-Medicine and Rehabilitation. She's working on Stephanie, who was involved recently in an automobile accident. Stephanie has tight thoracic and cervical musculature, and Cora is doing some myofascial release work and some therapeutic stretching, doing it to help her with her pain. Vicky is also a patient here at Advanced Multi-Medicine and Rehabilitation. Vicky is now working her leg muscles, specifically her quadricep muscles, trying to strengthen them after an injury she sustained. Find yourself in need of any type of physical therapy, please don't hesitate to call Advanced Multi-Medicine and Rehabilitation, located in Westbury, New York, in Suite 214. Phone number is 516-334-7000, or find us on our website at advancedmultimedicine.com.
Coach is a full-service limousine and party bus company. Family-owned and operated, we are an industry leader with over 25 years of experience in providing best-in-class luxury transportation for your special event. Whether it's your precious wedding day, an all-day wine tour out east, your high school prom, that special birthday, or just an amazing night on the town, Our professional chauffeurs stand ready to ensure your special event is truly special. Galaxy Luxury Coach has one of the largest and modern party bus fleets in the New York area. Our party buses are simply nightclubs on wheels. Concert sound systems, light shows, lasers and strobes, multicolor LED lighting brilliantly lights your party bus inside and out. For corporate and more laid-back events, we will cater to your specific needs and requests. What sets Galaxy aside from all others in the luxury transportation industry is our attention to detail in customizing our services to your special event. At Galaxy, it's all about you and your guests. Galaxy customers return time and time again because they know they can trust Galaxy to help deliver those lifetime memorable moments. Step aboard and let your Galaxy experience begin. Galaxy Luxury Coach.
What are you looking for? You don't even know that. Are you on the ball list? So you can't even answer. I'm asking you about it. You gotta be highly skilled. You gotta be highly skilled. You understand that?
Are you sick?
Are you well versed there? Are you a very smart man? Hit me with some funny shit.
My shit's twisted.
Tell me something. Tell me
What
something.
do you have right there?
That's awesome.
Well,
That's a big.
That's nice.
You know damn well. You know damn well.
That's awesome. That's awesome. That's
Sir, are you interested in
Twisted
or not?
talent.
Yes, I am.
Sure. See, you got twisted. You got twisted.
That's twisted. That's talent.
You see what I'm saying? You understand me? And if you can't whip out answers like that, that man is liable to door to commercial break, punch your fucking mouth loose. You understand me? Time is up, sir. You understand me? You're on. You're the man. All right, give me your name now. I'm sorry.
My name is Willie.
Willie, where you working at?
we are twisted. We are awesome. Love, awesome. Love, awesome. Love, awesome.
Can you repeat that question again?
That camera up. Welcome back to Long Island in Crisis, and I'm here with my good friend Avi Israel. So we'll talk a little bit about, you know, how do you avoid? I mean, you're right. You and I can go back and go through life and say, you know, what happened, what didn't happen. I know that my kids lost 3 grandparents, and my husband and I got divorced within 3 years.
Yeah.
At a very tough age. It's like so many traumatic events on top of, you know.
Yeah.
So I can understand Thomas's need to escape.
Right.
Brought him to therapy, brought all 3 of them to therapy. If they don't want to talk, they don't want to talk. You know, so things, you know, when you have an angry, upset teenager, that doesn't always mean that that's normal.
No.
Part of it is adolescence, but part of it isn't. Part of it may not be. Let's put it that way.
I think we all should get involved in a kid's life. I mean, and we think we are. I thought I was. I thought I was involved with Michael's life. But in Michael's case, it was a different situation. I mean, he was sick. You know, he was sick. And it happens to a lot of kids.
Absolutely.
You know, and I don't use that. I mean, had Michael lived, I don't know that he would not go into heroin and all that stuff. He probably would have, you know, because he had, you know, we have addiction.
It was the progression of his disease.
Yeah, and we have addiction in our family. My father was alcoholic, and you know, so there was addiction in our family. But I just think that today, with all the options that are available for young people today, and all the bad influences that are, we hand them. We actually hand our kids bad influences by giving them the phones, by giving them these video games, you know, by not having the conversation with them, you know, all that stuff all contributes to that. But the main important thing is sit and talk with your kid. Find out what it is that makes them tick. Find out what it is, what bothers them, what makes them happy, you know, what it is they would like to do, what it is that they don't want to do.
You know, it's interesting because I say this to parents all the time too. In my neighborhood, I see a lot of kids riding on the weekends with backpacks.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't want to bring my school backpack with me anyplace. When I didn't even want to bring it to school.
Yeah.
But if your child has toys or, you know, and that can happen, and they leave with it on their back, and you see the bag leave the house.
What's
but if
in that
your
bag?
child is putting the bag on the side of the garage going out to get their bike, then putting their bag on and leaving. What's in the bag?
Yeah.
What's in the bag? Look in the bag.
Yeah.
You know, where are you going? Are you going to a party? Let me call your friend's parents. Don't be afraid to do that. Those are important. And if your child reacts badly, they're probably...
That's okay. They'll get over it.
They'll get over it. And if they don't get over it and they're safe, then
everybody's a winner.
Then you did your job.
Yeah, everybody's a winner. You know, it's very easy to just please the child because it's an easy thing to do. But then you wake up one day and you're having a holiday dinner and there's an empty chair there. So by then it's too late.
By then it's too late. Yeah.
So
And that changes. You know, we talk about that. Siblings. The dynamics are forever changed. You know, my 18-year-old, Andrew was 18 years old when he found his brother.
Yeah.
Do you know what he thinks about every day at 7:15?
His brother.
Yeah, and that scene.
Every Saturday I think of at 10 o'clock I think of Michael. But let's talk for a minute about what addiction does to a family, because that is also very important. You know, for anybody that thinks that addiction is confined to the person who is addicted, you're wrong. It's a family disease.
Absolutely.
It destroys the fabric of the family. It completely changes everything upside down, and people don't understand that.
I know. I was at work worrying, what's going on at my house?
Yes.
Is things being stolen? What's going on? Anxiety. But I have to be at work, and I have to be Linda, the businesswoman, because I have to earn a living to keep the roof over their heads.
Yeah.
You know, no time to breathe.
Yeah. I remember the same thing. I remember being at work and talking to a friend at work, and I say, I don't know what the hell that damn kid did to get himself addicted. I can't believe he's got Crohn's disease. Now he's got another damn thing that I got to worry about, and that's his addiction. And, you know, by then it was too late.
Yeah.
By then it was too late, you know.
And you know, I always say, it's not that I didn't want to talk about the addiction at work, but you start to put compartments in your brain. And when I was at work, I had to be at work.
Yes.
I had to be there.
You have to focus.
And I had to focus.
Yeah.
And if I started to talk about that, then my day is, because it brings you, you know, it brings you to your knees.
Yeah. It's, you know, we all have to focus. Let's face it. None of us were born with a lot of money, and none of us, you know, inherited anything. So we have to go to work every day. But at the same time, you know, our kids is our legacy that we leave to this world.
And you want better than you had growing up.
Absolutely.
It's just, that's human nature.
So, you know, it's just like your house. You know, if you don't take care of it, it falls apart. And it's the same thing, you know. You build a good foundation in the kid, and then the house and your kid will last for a long time. And that's what we need to do, is we need to build that foundation, and we need to nurture that foundation, and we need to make sure that that house stays strong, and that same thing with our kids. You know, that is what we leave behind, and we want to leave something that
that's
going to last.
Absolutely.
You know, in my case, I mean, you know, I always cry because Michael was the last Israel.
Wow.
You know, so you know, the name will not be carried on because Michael has passed away. You know, maybe I'll get one of my son-in-laws to change their name. I'll pay him off. But
I understand, though.
But you know, you want to leave something behind.
Never mind that. You know what we. God's sakes, we lost our child.
We lost that. Yeah, and that's what I'm trying to say. We lost our kid. We lost something that we can never replace.
Never.
You can never replace, and you are left with a life, and I compare it to, you know, life of a survivor, and we are called survivors. You know, you're always, it's like life on an ocean.
I call myself a warrior now.
Well, are you?
Yes.
Okay, a survivor warrior.
Yes.
So we are like on a boat, a small boat in the ocean that goes up and down with this waves, and sometimes we're way down there.
Yeah.
With that depression and that pain, missing, and sometimes we're up there, you know. And I have very good thoughts about Michael. Sometimes I smile to myself at night, and I'm happy of the good things that I did with him, you know. But that's what it is, our life. It's like your dining room table has 3 legs, and you're always trying to balance it somehow.
Yes.
And that's what it is. But did I have that talk with Michael about drugs? I did, but I had a talk with him about marijuana and about alcohol and about wearing a rubber if you have sex.
Right.
Never thought that I would talk to him about addiction. Never thought that I needed to talk to him about addiction. And that's the point I'm trying to make. Things have changed. Things are changing rapidly for kids today. And make that part of your talk.
Kim Laube, who is on the FIST board also, but she runs a program called Hugs. And it's about protective factors, and it's about all the things that you do when your kids are, you know, wait up for them when they come home. You want to see them and what kind of shape they're in. Have a curfew, have a code that if they're at a party that they're not comfortable at, that there's a way for them to make an exit without looking like they're uncomfortable leaving. You know, there are a lot of things that we need to instill in our kids.
Always call and say, I want to come home.
Or text a code. Have a code.
Yeah.
So that, you know, when you see that code, you know, you call and say, I have to come pick you up now. We have an emergency. So it doesn't look, you know, it doesn't make them any more anxious or feeling that they're not going to fit in. But we also have to build up our kids that are doing the right thing. And
I want to touch on something that is really a fallacy. Because everybody thinks that it's not going to happen to them.
Oh, not my child.
And I was one. And Michael went to a private high school, went to private schools all his life, and then he went to University of Buffalo and he was studying architecture, you know. And I never thought once that addiction was going to hit my family. Never even thought of it. I never even thought of my dad, who was an alcoholic. I didn't make the connection. Didn't even think that somehow that's going to affect my child. And you know, for a lot of these parents today, and I'll give you a great example. We just did a program at a suburban school outside of Buffalo, and we always include the DEA with us and police. And
the DEA is Drug Enforcement Agency, and that's the federal government.
Right. And the local sheriff or the local police department. And one of the parents at the school said, we don't have that kind of problem in our school. We're suburban. That's in Buffalo. That's not here. And the DEA said, did you read in the paper about the bust that we just did? And he said, yeah. And he says, 3 of the buyers were from here. And they were supplying your high school kids. They were high school kids. So for anybody out there who thinks that it's not going to affect them and it's not going to touch them, they're wrong. You know, it is more of a suburban problem than an inner city problem. It is more of a middle class problem than a poor problem. And when you read on Facebook of all these stupid comments about, you know, everybody that gets welfare should go for a drug test, that is total BS. Okay? Everybody that lives in the suburb and has health insurance should go for a drug test.
Absolutely.
Because that's where all the drugs are.
Yeah.
They're not, you know, whatever is in the inner city, that's the guy who's selling the drugs to the suburban kids.
And they, you know, on Long Island, people have, in suburbia, you give your kid a car. You give your kid some spending money. You know, and people also, right after this message, we're going to talk about, well, my child plays sports, so I'm okay.
Yeah.
That's the first place that they're going to have a drink or smoke marijuana.
Or get a pain pill because the knee hurts from sport.
Yep. We'll be right back after this message.
$1.3 million women are victims of physical assault by an intimate partner each year. According to the National Coalition Against Domestic Violence, the majority of cases aren't reported to the police. Most people who are in an abusive relationship don't even know they're in one. The truth is, all abusive relationships boil down to one thing: control.
How do you like it? My new dress.
Are you out of your mind? You look like a prostitute. We're not going out with you dressed up like that in public.
But what am I supposed to wear?
Wear something decent. You can't wear that out in public. We're going to be late. Get back in there and pick a different outfit. I'm going to go run some errands. I'll be back in 30 minutes. Please be ready, okay?
Fine, I'll change. Fine.
Abuse is not always physical, leaving wounds that are visible on the outside. Emotional abuse is just as painful, only these wounds are hidden on the inside.
Are you out of your mind? You're crazy. You look like a prostitute.
Know that abuse is abuse, no matter what the form.
Look at me.
Oh my God, what's wrong with me?
Physical abuse scars the body.
I just wanted to love me.
But mental abuse scars the mind.
What you just saw was an example of a relationship that is emotionally abusive. Nobody has the right to tell you how to dress or how to act. If someone really cares for you, they won't tear you down. They will build you up.
How do you like it?
Wow. You look great. Fantastic. But then again, you look great all the time.
Thank you. I was hoping you'd like it. It's my new dress. I bought it just so we could go out tonight.
You look stunning.
Thank you. But I think I'm going to take a sweater just in case it gets cold tonight.
Great idea. I'm going to take one too. Let's go.
All relationships are not perfect, but a healthy relationship is when two people bring out the best in each other and have each other's good in mind. Take your time to know someone instead of rushing into something. It is better not to involve yourself with an abusive person than to try and get out of a domestic violence situation.
If someone is abusive to you and you need help, please call the Domestic Violence Hotline at 1-800-799-SAFE. That's 1-800-799-SAFE. They have highly trained experts available 24/7 who will speak with you confidentially and offer information regarding the unhealthy aspects of your relationship, resources, or immediate support for victims to find safety and live lives free of abuse. Domestic violence affects us all.
It affects us all.
Nos afecta a todos.
It affects us all.
모두에게 영향을 줍니다.
Che ci ricarte tutte.
It affects us all.
Domestic violence.
Welcome back to Long Island in Crisis. I'm here with my good friend Avi Israel, and we've covered so many things. So I especially want to talk about families again.
Yes.
There are many 12-step programs for people suffering with the disease and also for the families involved. We're known as the collateral damage. So if your loved one is getting help, they need to come back to an environment that is conducive for their new lifestyle. You need to be educated also on how you've been affected by the disease of addiction, and we are all affected. Enabling, you know, we want to help our loved ones. That's why they're our loved ones. But there's a difference between helping them and enabling them. Yeah. And it's important that families seek out that help and have other families that are in the same predicament that they can bounce ideas off of.
Well, I think you definitely, it is a community problem.
Yes.
There's no doubt about it. This, you know, it is a community. And, you know, the old saying, it takes a village to raise a kid.
It does.
It does take,
you know,
a community.
And I've been speaking about this because I'm the youngest of 5 kids. So everyone knew who we were, who we were in our neighborhood. But if I did something 4 blocks away, by the time I rode my bicycle home,
everybody knew.
Everybody knew, and you walked in the back door, and my mother would, you know,
have the wooden spoon.
The wooden spoon, or she was really good at throwing that hairbrush that followed you up the steps and hit you in the back of the head.
We had the shoe that followed us.
Right? You cared enough about your neighborhood kids to let parents know. So, and I think there's two sides to this. The person that is receiving the information about their child needs not to get into an uproar. Just listen, because no one's trying to hurt, accuse, or anything else. And that goes also with the school district. Well, you're walking on eggshells all the time.
Well, you know what? The thought that I forgot before that I told you, well, it just came back to me. I had a senior moment there for a second. 4 years ago, or 4.5 years ago, and all that said, you and I didn't have all this information. There was not that much talk.
There wasn't any talk.
There was no talk. There was no groups available. There was no facilities that held, you know, parents group and all that stuff.
Forums.
You know, all forums, all that stuff. There's so much more out there today that it's really your fault if you don't take advantage of it. It's really, you know, as a parent, I encourage you to go out there, find a group, get involved in your community, get involved with what's going on, and be part of the community. Because if you think that it's not going to affect you, number one, you're wrong. It will affect you in one way or the other. The worst way, it would affect you if your kid, God forbid, is addicted or worse.
But you know, we can even take this just to a purely economic standpoint. So we'll just talk that way. If your community is a hotbed and addiction is high in your community, is your property values going to be the same? No. You know, let's just, you know, because a lot of people talk about that. If we talk about it, our property values will go down. Well, then become involved and, you know, make the attempt to become involved in your community.
Well, just think of the resources that are being spent on incarceration or inpatient instead of resources that could be spent on prevention. And that's the best, you know, prevention is the best drug fighter there is.
Absolutely, you know. But, you know, parents, we say, oh, I'm not going to get all the vaccines for my child because I think they may get autism. Well, you do the research for that. But why wouldn't you do the research then on something that could harm them also?
Yeah.
Why wouldn't you arm yourself with every available thing that you could put, you know, we want to be able to, you know, if someone's going to punch you, you got to put your arm up.
Yeah.
You got to protect.
Yeah.
And the best way to protect is to educate and empower yourselves not to be the victim. And you're right, we didn't have all of this. And I was proud to be involved with Combat Heroin campaign last year. There's websites, there's organizations in every single town. Families in Support of Treatment was born last year out of the need to get families to come out, to go march to Albany, to share your outrage as to what happened to your family and you're not going to take it anymore.
And that's the only way we can change things. Really.
Absolutely.
I mean, that's the only way we can change things, and that's the only way that politicians will do whatever it is that required to be done. You know, the worst thing for a politician is negative press. So if you have an outrage in your community and people are starting to point the finger at you and you represent that community and you're not listening to them, you're not going to be there for very long. You know? So the only way to make sure that your community is safe and your kids are safe and your kids are going to live for a long time and it's not there in the future affecting some other people that are your neighbors or your cousins or your aunts and uncles or what have you, is for people to get involved. And that's the point that we're always trying to bring up. You know, if you're not part of it, then you are promoting it.
If you can't complain about a situation if you're not willing to step up and correct it.
Absolutely, yes.
So you need to be part of the solution. And that doesn't mean you have to be outspoken or anything, but be willing to make a phone call, be willing to send an email, be willing to write a letter, and be willing to get on a bus and be part of a group of people that need to change what's going on in our state. We'll start with New York, but within this country. You need to step up and be counted. It used to be that way, and it's nobody's fault but our own if we don't step up.
You know, and you don't have to wait until there's a war happening before everybody bands together. And,
Absolutely.
And I mean, we actually do have a war right now. We have an epidemic. We have an epidemic that's going on in this country right now, and we're not doing very much about it. But, you know, the main thing is be vocal, be active, learn what you can learn about what's going on. Learn how to prevent, God forbid, death and addiction from happening. And it does happen. I mean, anybody out there, you can reach out and put both your hands out, and I bet you'll touch somebody that is touched by addiction. It goes without a doubt, whether it's alcohol, cigarette, whatever, you know, drugs, you know, prescription, whatever it is, it's out there, you know. And talk about addiction, like I said before, in open manners. It's not a secret. There's nothing to be ashamed of, you know. You know,
there is nothing to be ashamed of.
Well, a lot of people think of it, oh, geez, I don't want to have that pain, that shame. You and I have a pain
that never
that
ever
will never
go
away. And you know what? I'd rather have the pain of shame instead of that pain of loss.
Absolutely.
You know, because that pain of loss, there's no pill for it.
It goes back to, if you haven't walked in my shoes, certainly don't criticize me.
Yeah.
So, you know, anyone can look at your family and say, well, take a look inside your own house. Always.
You know, it's a funny thing. When I told you, when I first gave Michael's story to the Buffalo News, somebody wrote, where was Mr. Israel when his son was going to the doctor getting the pills? I was right with him, you idiot. I was right there with him. I just didn't know anything about it.
And let's keep in mind that a doctor said this is good for
him. So here's the thing. I didn't know. Had I known then, I would have said to the doctor, absolutely not. Let's find out what the hell it is.
Do you know the crazy thing is, I'm going to ask you for your closing thoughts in a few minutes, but on TV now there's a commercial for if you have a problem going to the bathroom if you're taking opiates. So there's a pill to correct what those pills are already doing to your body.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you know, Claudia Ragney, who you know, she was here in May, and we talked about there are long-acting opiates and there are short-acting. It's the short-acting opiates that get prescribed all the time, and those are the ones that can't be used for more than the 7 to 10 days. So if you know that you're going to put somebody on for a longer period of time, then as a physician, you should know which drugs would be safer to use.
Well, unfortunately, I mean, when we touched on that before, the pharmaceutical companies share, you know, they send you those cheerleaders, you know.
You get lunches, you get trips, you get free drugs.
You got the pretty girl who's telling you to buy this or buy that, and the handsome man that tells you to get this. There's a magic pill, and you start giving them out. And, you know, you don't give it a second thought. And the other thing that's bad with our system is the 8-minute visit.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, we've been sitting here for a while discussing this situation. How are you going to find out what it is that's ailing somebody in 8 minutes? You just can't.
We have to wrap up, and you know what, Avi? I'm going to ask you to close the show tonight.
Well,
Your final thoughts.
My thought is this: get involved with your community, get involved in your kid's life, and for God's sake, get involved in changing the political system to where your congressman, your senator, your assemblyman, your state senator listen to you instead of the people with the money. Because if they're not listening to you, they're working against you. And the way to do it is by voting, and the way to do it by being vocal. And if you're not vocal,
you know,
you're not gonna get
advocacy
anywhere.
comes in February. So, you know, certainly on Long Island, we'll get that information to you, but there's a day that everyone goes up to Albany to see their local
we're going to start again this year in November.
Doctor's education.
Doctor's education. We're going to want the state education department to do something about schools and get that more in there instead of just red ribbon. We want it to be talked about on weekly or monthly basis.
Absolutely.
You know, and put it out there. Put it out there. There's nothing to be afraid of addiction. There's nothing to be ashamed of, I should say, of addiction. There's a lot to be afraid of.
A lot to be afraid of. Nothing to be ashamed of.
Yes.
You know. Thank you for joining us tonight. I look forward to seeing you next week. Have a great week, and thank you, Avi.
Thank you.